Spring Black Friday is on at the Home Depot. Save on grills and patio sets that will be sure to bring your hosting game up a notch. Fire up your feast with help from the Home Depot and save on grills. Like the Next Grill 4-burner propane gas grill was $249, now in special buy for $199. Or give everyone the best seat in the yard with the Hampton Bay Mayfield Park 4-piece conversation set for only $399. Save on grills and patio sets with low prices guaranteed during Spring Black Friday only at the Home Depot. Now through April 22nd, while supplies last. Exclusions apply. See homedepot.com/price match for details.
It's crunch time at work, and you need to bring wings to your workday. Visit redbull.com/gettingitdone and answer a couple questions about your work style to get a Spotify customized playlist tuned to your productivity. Plus, score a can of Red Bull on us while you go from to-do to done. And remember, Red Bull gives you wings. Supplies are limited. Terms apply. Visit the website for more information.
Hello and welcome back to Off the Record on Tudor's Dynasty and Beyond podcast. I'm Rebecca Larson.
And I'm Amy McElroy.
And it's Sunday. I feel like I'm not going to sing it today. It's Sunday. Welcome back.
Yes.
That didn't feel right. I have to do it
again.
It's Sunday.
There we go. That's better.
Yeah. People are going to get tired of me doing that too. They're like, I know what day it is. And I don't even listen on Sunday. So stop telling us it's Sunday. Anyway, it's Off the Record. I am so happy to be joined by my good friend, Amy McElroy again. And we just love to talk about interesting things in history.
Yes.
And last week we did another marriage edition, and that one was the good, bad, and ugly. And there were definitely some bad and ugly ones. The good ones, weren't so terrible, but the bad ones were definitely bad, weren't they?
Yep.
What were people saying about the episode?
So, Leslie said loved it and had a couple of suggestions, which I'm not going to read out. I'm going to keep them in my back pocket. And then there is another comment from Laurie who says, totally agree on the couples you mentioned. I can't help but think of Catherine Grey and Edward Seymour's marriage too, as even though they were in love, the consequences were so unfortunate.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. And Laura says, talking about Arthur Plantagenet, Arthur was also a gifted soldier. It seems like he inherited the best features of his father and none of his worst. So I quite like that. And then she talks about the third Duke of Norfolk, saying he's a piece of work. She thinks he gave his children the properties that were their birthright, but withheld the money from those properties, which is an interesting idea, probably right, because he was greedy and a way to control them, and possibly brought them their silence with regards to their mother.
Oh,
so that's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
And then you're going to hate me for these, but I'm going to read them out anyway. So Caroline says this is in reference to the comment that I read out that wasn't so nice.
Oh, for those who are only seeing this episode, haven't seen the previous one,
there was a comment that essentially told Rebecca to stop laughing.
I can't stop. so ridiculous. Okay,
stop laughing in a series where most of what we do is laugh.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
All right.
But Caroline says, whoever doesn't like laughter, I'm sorry, people who are uncomfortable with joy don't have enough in their life. I hope more joy comes your way soon. And then there's a side note. If we can make Hamilton award-winning musical, I'm confident Musmore can happen and have more than just Amy and me watching. We'd just be the only people in the audience who aren't theology professors.
You really want to make this happen, you guys.
It needs to happen. Bam Bam says, I just want to say thank you, Rebecca. Please don't change a thing. I've been watching since the middle of Dr. Emma and Me series, and it's slowly turned into Rebecca and Friends and is absolutely great. I always love the vibes and the fact that everyone is open-minded and fun. There's so many educational podcasts that people can watch if that's what if they're looking for. One of the biggest reasons I keep coming back to this channel is the fact that it feels like a bunch of friends who are all incredibly knowledgeable, yet open-minded for having a fun chat and learning together just for the fun and love of history. And then they say that they loved the chat that you had with me and other Rebecca. So,
Oh, I love that comment. So thank you, Bam Bam. And I love your username too.
I know. Wayne says, thank you for another enjoyable and educational show. Don't stop giggling. Our sad, angry world needs a happy break from stress and frequent horror. I feel privileged to get educational opportunities in such an easy way, literally sitting on my ass sipping coffee. So there we go. And there's quite a few others that are around the podcast in its entirety and telling you to keep laughing, essentially. So there you have it. The good far outweighs the one sad person that thought that that was okay to do.
I just want to let everybody know I really appreciate those comments. I know I've been doing this podcast for 9 years now, and I learned early on to have a thick skin because sometimes the comments, especially on YouTube, are just so mean. And I don't know what it was about multiple people attacking my laughter that kind of broke through that thick skin a little bit and it hurt me. And so I'm so grateful to those of you who took the opportunity to remind me that it's not a terrible thing and that you do enjoy it. So that really means a lot to me. So thank you for that.
And I'd be very bored if we didn't laugh.
Yeah,
So
I know.
there is that.
Even before we start recording, we're just laughing the whole time.
It does take us a while to
It does.
actually get going recording because we're usually laughing about something else.
Yeah, we're just having a good time. There's nothing wrong with that.
Maybe we should do a behind the scenes one day where they just listen to our nonsense.
People would be like, wow.
Cancel.
If you only knew some of the strange things that we were talking about before we started this show today.
Oh dear.
Well, today I want to say another fun topic 'cause they're all fun, but I don't know. Many, many years ago, I wrote an article for my website called Men Behaving Badly. And after we did the last episode about the good, bad, and the ugly, I had to look down at it again to remember what it was titled. After we did that, I thought this kind of ties into it a little bit. And men behaving badly, there were so many men in Tudor England who behaved badly.
Oh,
And one is one that we talk about quite a bit on this show, and we usually don't go into in depth into how bad he behaved because Henry Cavill's hot. And so we think of Charles Brandon as hot Henry Cavill, and he's not. He is not the same person. The real Charles Brandon was a piece of work.
yeah, he was a little bit naughty.
Yeah, he was. And so I thought, this would be a good topic for Amy because obviously she's done a bunch of research into Charles Brandon's wife, Mary Tudor. And so she's going to know his stories and the bad things that he's done. And so I think we should lead off with Charles Brandon today.
Okay. So, Brandon, oh, lovable favourite. So, those that don't know who he was the son of Sir William Brandon. His father was actually the standard bearer to Henry Tudor at Bosworth and sadly died at Bosworth. It's thought that after his father's death, he was took in by his uncle, Sir Thomas Brandon. But Henry VII was obviously extremely grateful for the sacrifice that his dad had made, and he kept an eye on him. So he was obviously welcome at court. Um, he was later given a position attendant upon a young Prince Henry, and their friendship flourished from there. But where he becomes a bit of a naughty boy is around the women. So I think he's always had this kind of ladies' man reputation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
he
like
pretty much was. So he was actually originally contracted to marry a lady called Anne Brown. So she was the daughter of Sir Anthony Brown. Um, but for some reason that I'm not aware of, the marriage did not go through. And at some point, before February 1507, he married a lady called Margaret Neville. So Margaret Neville was the daughter of John Neville, the Marquis of Montague, who was also the younger brother of Richard Neville. So Eric, Earl of Warwick, Kingmaker, that one.
okay. Okay.
So quite a prominent family there. She was already widowed from Sir John Mortimer, and as a result of obviously her own family and the loss of her husband, she was very wealthy, but she was also quite old in comparison to Henry Cavill. So they get married. As we all know, back in the Tudor period, if you are a female, unless you are very high up in the nobility and can protect your assets, etc., they become the property of your husband.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. So he essentially got access to all of her money, all of her properties, etc., etc. Later that year, their marriage was actually declared void. And it was declared void on the basis that their relationship was too close. So they're actually connected, which is odd. So the first aspect of this connection is that, right, I'm gone. So Margaret, okay, so wife of Brandon,
Yeah.
was actually related to Anne Brown.
Oh.
So obviously he hadn't married her, so that's not really against the rules. It's just a bit odd. But she was the Anne was the stepdaughter of Margaret's sister, Lucy. So
Oh.
there's already a little bit of a connection there, which is probably how Brandon knew her. So not good on his part. But
No.
then the bit that really brings the family bond into this is that the father of Margaret's first spouse, who's obviously at this point deceased, was actually married to Brandon's grandmother.
Wow, this is an interesting family tree situation that we have going on here.
Yeah. So that marriage is voided, and early the next year, 1508, Brandon marries Amber. So he does marry her, which basically makes me think that was his true love. That's what he originally wanted. He just went towards Margaret to get a bit of money. And who knows, maybe Anne was in on it.
Yeah. Oh, ooh, scandal. You just
You
introduced some
know, go
scandal.
and go and marry my whatever she was, stepdaughter, stepmother's sister, get all of her money, have it voided, and then come back.
She's like, it's fine. You might have to consummate the marriage, but I don't care. She's an old hag, so
So I actually do feel sorry for Margaret though, because obviously she lost everything and was
yeah.
left with no husband again at the end of it. So
Yeah, Charles
Thankfully, she
Brandon.
had a prominent family to fall back on, but it's still not nice for her. But anyway, so Brandon and Anne, once they're married, do have two children. So both daughters, Lady Anne and Lady Mary. So um, sadly, Anne, his wife, not his daughter, doesn't live very long.
Mm.
So his next move is he is granted the wardship of Elizabeth Grey, who was fifth Baroness Lisle. So he gets that wardship in 1512. And through her, he's obviously got access to her wealth and lands because she's a ward. And the idea is that once she comes of age, he will possibly marry her.
I'm seeing a pattern here with him. Okay, keep going.
And he obtained the title Viscount Lisle in 1513,
Mm.
which, if you listen to last week's show, you'll know that that ended up with Arthur Plantagenet. So,
Yes.
but Brandon does actually surrender the title later down. So we've got Anne, then we've got Margaret, and then he goes back to Anne. Then there's a possibility of Elizabeth. That doesn't happen. And then there's also one more, which will make you wonder, and I will leave it to the audience to make their decision of did something happen or did something not happen.
Oh,
So the other one is Margaret of Austria, Duchess of Savoy. So the daughter of Emperor Maximilian. And apparently, when she met Brandon, she actually writes about this as well in letters. And Henry is also there. And Henry actually asks her, is there a chance of a match between you and my best buddy, Charles? And she essentially says, no, like, there's no way my father would allow that. So, okay. But in a weird twist, she then says to Henry, because Brandon has to go away somewhere, I will not marry until he comes back. And in response, he promises not to marry without her consent. That's a little bit weird.
yeah.
But on top of that, he also takes a diamond ring off her, which obviously, could just be a trinket. But when she's actually asked about it, she says that when he comes to visit her, he's kneeling in front of her. Obviously, that's not weird because you would do that. She's a duchess. Um, and he takes this ring off her finger and puts it on his own. And when she asks for it back, well, he's not fluent in French. So he doesn't understand. So he basically just doesn't give her this ring. So the next day she has to ask Henry to get the ring. And he essentially says, don't worry about it. Like, I'll give you a better ring. And she's like, it's not the ring I'm bothered about. It's the symbol. Like, Henry, and to be fair, why haven't we all got friends like this? Henry rocks up with this diamond and ruby tablet and gives it to her
He's
in
like,
place of this little diamond ring. And she is still like, yeah, no, I want my ring. So Henry actually gets it back off Brandon and gives it back to her.
mm.
And then the next time she sees Brandon, he does it again. He
Wait,
takes the ring off her again.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then she doesn't get it back after that. He just sails off to the sunset with a
Oh,
with her little diamond ring. So obviously it makes you wonder. She did ask Henry again and he basically laughed it off.
Is this
So,
okay? Can I just interrupt for just a second? This is coming off as like very like serial killer vibes. People like keeping trinkets from the people that they murder. This is like Charles Brandon. How many trinkets did he have from all the women he slept with?
it's just bizarre, but it makes you
Yeah.
think if you knew that you were going to see Brandon again, why did you put the bloody ring on?
Yeah. Yeah. And he took
Leave
it
it off,
again. Why
leave it
didn't
off for one day.
why didn't you yank it off his hand? You're a duchess. He's like a
Well,
nobody.
yes, there is that. Have your guards stop him, whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
and then obviously he is elevated to a duke.
Yeah.
So there's a theory that was he elevated to match her status?
Oh.
I think no. But I think, you know what? Henry, for as much bad as he did do later on in his life, does appear to have been a good wingman when he was younger. Like, come on, asking her, is there any chance of a match? Gives her rubies and diamonds to pay her off for his friend pinching a ring. Like,
Wow.
not a bad wingman, really, is he?
Yeah. And he's like, "Hey, have you met my friend Charles?"
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
and then obviously nothing happened after that. And then you've got Mary. So he obviously marries Mary Tudor, sister of Henry. And there's obviously a lot of theories about them as did Henry know about the what was going to happen? Did he not know? Was he elevated to the dukedom for Mary rather than Margaret? So
Yeah.
it's all theories. I know what I think, which we won't waste the whole of today's episode on, but I think it's interesting. And then of course, once Mary dies, he marries Catherine Willoughby, um, which is in modern England, it's just wrong. Full stop, it's wrong.
Yeah.
Like she was his ward. The original idea was that she would marry his son. Um, But I think what we need to understand regarding Brandon at that point is when Mary died, although a lot of their debts got wiped, Henry didn't do it immediately. So as far as Brandon was concerned, I owe thousands to the king. I've just lost my biggest income,
Yeah.
which was Mary's income as Dowager Queen of France. What is he going to do? And
Wow.
he's got an option right there living in his house.
I just saw a lot of parallels between Charles Brandon and Thomas Seymour right there that I don't think I ever saw before. I guess
Yeah. I
not
think
even,
although it's wrong for us now because of the age and things, I think back then there was nothing unusual about an age difference like that. And I think he
yeah.
made the choice that he had to make to keep himself in the position that he was in. So, and obviously, maybe if Henry had wiped the debts off straight away, he wouldn't have done it. Who knows? I think he did it for purely for the money.
Well, it was a difficult time, really, especially if you were at court and you needed to have power and influence. And if you lost that, where does that leave you? Like you're not going to gain more if you don't go for it. And so he did what he probably perceived that he had
And
to
he's,
do.
he's at risk of losing his home. And when I say his home, he had a lot of properties, and he did give some back to Henry to try and pay it. So I think you can see that he tried to do some things to lower the debt and whatever else. But how are you going to pay? You're never going to be able to pay that off. And Henry wasn't harsh with them. He didn't demand they repay their debts all the time. He only ever seemed to ask when he needed money. But the problem was Brandon now had a much reduced income. If Henry does start demanding money, he's got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And, he could have lost Westhorpe, which he'd put the equivalent today of millions of pounds into it, only to lose it because of debt to the crown. Whereas really that's his estate to leave to his son. So
Yeah.
I can see why he did it, even though we think it's wrong today. Back those days, that wasn't wrong. So
Yeah. I feel like we always see Charles Brandon as like the consummate womanizer in Tudor England, right? He is the poster boy for that.
yeah. And I think he very much, I would say he was. I think he must have loved Anne. I think he did love Anne. I think first Margaret was money. Second Margaret was hedging your bets to marry a duchess. Why not?
Yeah. Let's see what
And she's
happens.
not just a duchess, she's a regent. She's running the Netherlands on behalf of her nephew.
Mm.
So that's a lot of power.
Yeah. Well, that would have also been very convenient for Henry VIII to have his best buddy be married to Margaret of Austria.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Everything is like a power play, political moves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Men behaving badly. Well, not like he talked about Charles Brandon, and I saw the similarities with Thomas Seymour. So now I feel like I have to talk about Thomas Seymour
There we go.
next. I don't want to like, there's so much about his life that I always feel like I don't want to talk about, but I feel like the similarities in when you lose your wife who held so much power. I think there was like if you compare Mary Tudor, Dowager Queen of France, to Catherine Parr. She was his power. I was like, that was a slip right there. If you compare those two, you can see very similar dynamics between the husband and wife, and the husband got most of his wealth and maybe power from his wife. And it wasn't any different, obviously, for Thomas Seymour. And I just feel like when we talk about men behaving badly, from the moment Henry VIII died, it was like Thomas Seymour was, the best way to describe it, he was like on a mission for power because I think he really believed that as an uncle to the king, that he would have some prestigious position at court that would indicate that he is this powerful uncle. Anyway, so I feel like that's when it all started, when Edward VI came to the throne and Thomas wasn't made governor of the king's body like he had thought he would. He wasn't given a grand title like Duke. He was made Baron. He's already stewing at that point where he's like, come on, guys, what's going on here? Why am I getting the shaft? And so then he thinks, well, how can I get the power for myself? Well, I'm going to go back to this Catherine lady who I probably could have married her before Henry VIII did because I'm a pretty eligible bachelor, like I'm picturing like Thomas Seymour's ego at the time. And he's like, well, Catherine's now free and I'm going to go shack up with her because she probably hasn't been getting any from Henry VIII for the last however many years. There has to be some of that to this story, okay? I'm just gonna say that's just how it goes. I'm not gonna go into personal details, but I'm just gonna say that's how it goes. Okay.
Use your imagination, folks.
Use your imagination. So he decides that he's gonna marry Catherine Parr. The funny thing is before that they're like exchanging letters and they're like they know what they're doing is inappropriate because they're in the letters they're telling each other, burn this letter after you receive it or only send me a letter once a fortnight, stuff like that. Like they know that they have to be careful and yet they get secretly married. And of course, it gets them in a little bit of trouble because they get married and then they go to Edward VI and ask him who they think Thomas should marry. Thomas is like, so, nephew, I was thinking about getting married. Actually, I'm already married, but you don't need to know that. Who do you think I should marry? And Edward VI is like, well, maybe you should wed my sister Mary. That would be good for her. And Thomas was probably secretly thinking, oh, hell no, I am not marrying her. And then I think the other one was Anne of Cleves. And of course, Thomas Seymour is already married, so why would he want to marry Anne of Cleves? And then I think whoever it was that Thomas Seymour sent to Edward to ask, I think it was John Fowler, uh, asked to like nudge the king and then say something like, "Well, what do you think about Catherine? Catherine Parr, would she be a good Oh, she would be a great match." So basically they get Edward to write a letter saying, "I would love it if you would wed my stepmother, Catherine Parr. What a great marriage that would be." Meanwhile, they're already married. Okay. So this is where we're at in their relationship. Already deception. Okay. And you can't put that all on Thomas Seymour. Catherine was part of all of this.
Well, yeah, you can't marry yourself. There's got to be two there.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You know those friends who support your preference for podcasts over music on road trips? That's the energy State Farm brings to insurance. With over 19,000 local agents, they help you find the coverage that fits your needs, so you can spend less time worrying about insurance and more time enjoying the ride. Download the State Farm app or go online at statefarm.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Not sure how to tackle your taxes? Are you sweating the small print? You may be experiencing FOMO, the fear of messing up. The answer? Using TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. They help you get your biggest refund, and then we help you do more with it, with a personalized plan designed to help you hit your money goals. It's time to take your taxes to the max. Start filing today in the Credit Karma app.
Exactly. I feel like all the blame is always put on him. She was part of all of this too. You have to keep this in mind. And from the moment they got married, it caused problems because his brother Edward was upset that he didn't ask for permission beforehand. He didn't let him know, and he just went and did it anyway. So that caused problems. And then, of course, we have the incident with the jewels and Catherine's jewels and how they were still locked up in the tower, and Edward and his wife wouldn't let them have them. And I think that was kind of really the beginning of the downfall between the brothers, and the trust was kind of lost at that point. But really, I feel like his bad behavior didn't fully start until Catherine Parr died. And that was when he kind of like went off the rails, because he knew, and everyone around him knew, that without her, he was not as powerful. He didn't have like this second court anymore that he had with her. He didn't have all the influence that he had with her, even though he was still the uncle of the king. And so he just made the mistake of talking too much and trusting people. And I think I think he thought he had all of these friends. And this is something that he talks about later in the tower when he's like lamenting, like, I thought I had all of these friends. Where are they now? He didn't really have these friends. I think these people who surrounded him were his sycophants. They were just happy to be close to him and to be close to Parr and the power that they represented. And once she was gone, he lost the power. He lost, technically, all of her land went back to the crown. And so he lost that. And yet he was still scheming in the background to find ways to get her lands back. And I think that's something too that I really like to look into with my book is to understand what really happened to her jointure. Was there legal precedents that said if a dowager queen got married, that the land went to the husband, just like every other marriage in Tudor England? And from the research that I did, it had never really happened before this point. And so I think there was a lot of confusion on what could happen with this land. Who could hold it? Could he still have it?
I'd assume if it's crown lands, it would revert back to the crown if she dies. But yeah, it's an interesting. I suppose it depends how it's worded.
I think it is worded in her lifetime. that she held those
Uh,
lands. But then that's where I always question though, but then she got married, does that change things by law that the husband now takes hold of those properties instead of
I
the
don't
wife?
think it does because it would have been the same with Mary, wouldn't it, when with Brandon?
That's
So
true.
he didn't get her lands and stuff. That all stopped. So I assume it must be
Yeah.
the way it's worded in terms of if it's crown stuff
Yeah.
versus your normal standard marriage that is just a normal property.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's the difference.
Well, Thomas was going to try and do everything that he could to hold on to that land, And after Parr died, then he started looking at Elizabeth at the time because she had her own lands after the death of Henry VIII. And
Yeah.
he's like working behind the scenes with her people, being like, does she have signed patent letters that say these are her lands? Because if she does, maybe I could exchange what she has for what Parr had, and then we could just make it all okay, and I could still, then
Would
maybe.
that not have screwed Elizabeth over though? Because then if all Parr's lands revert back to the crown, Elizabeth loses everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have. It would have definitely. But do you think he cared about that? All he was like looking at survival at the time.
Probably not, but he definitely would have been dead once she come to the throne if he wasn't already. Could you imagine? Like, you literally stole all of my lands.
Yeah. Yeah, I just feel like he was just really stirring the pot at this time. And also at this time, I think it was Durham place that Elizabeth held. I think that's the one that Edward Seymour turned into a mint in London. And it was technically Elizabeth's place, but yet it was turned into a mint apparently without her permission. And Thomas was kind of stirring the pot with that too, going, well, this is your place. It's not right that they're turning this into like he was behaving very badly. Okay. Like most of the story from 1548 to his execution is Thomas Seymour grasping, talking too much, and getting himself in trouble. And while I don't believe that he was guilty of treason, I do believe he was guilty of being naughty.
So do you think, and you might have to think on this, I don't know if you'd be able to answer today, but do you think if he was given a dukedom when his brother was, that none of this would have happened?
I think a dukedom would have helped, but he wanted more power. I don't think it necessarily
Okay.
was
So
all
it's
the
not just
money.
the finance side of
Yeah.
things, it's the power as well. Okay,
Yeah,
fair enough.
he
I just
definitely.
wondered, I'm being nosy.
Yeah, I think well he was no different than any other Tudor man. He was ambitious, he wanted power, he wanted
Absolutely.
influence. And in the end, he just went about it all the wrong way. And after she died, I feel like he just spun out of control. Like she was that stabilizing force for him, where she could talk him down and go, whoa, whoa, honey, hang on a second. Let's take a deep breath before you overreact or do something hasty. So once she was gone, he's like, well, I'm going to figure out a way for the king to rule on his own and not need a council. Edward's old enough. We can make this happen. And he's planning a marriage between Edward and Lady Jane Grey. That was all just dumb. It was dumb movements on his part, but it was all him seeking power, really, when it came down to it.
Naughty boy.
Yeah, he was. I think it was good that I mentioned him after Charles Brandon because I think it's.
Yeah, that makes Charles Brandon look like an angel, to be fair.
Thomas Seymour, as far as we know, was not a womanizer.
No,
So by comparison, it's a different naughty, wouldn't you say?
yes, it is.
Yeah. The only other person that I can think of in that line then where we're talking about bad behavior is John Dudley too. And we're in the same time period here where John Dudley is doing things like I'll always say he is responsible for the execution of both Seymour brothers. He's responsible for helping the king turn against his uncles. He's responsible for having Edward VI name Lady Jane Grey his heir. And, once you know it, this is after his son had married her. And then
Yeah.
at the end of the story, he ends up getting executed for it all. So it's like karma. Karma finds a way. Although with Charles Brandon, it doesn't seem to have come back around. But
No, that's true, actually.
yeah, he lived a long life compared to the other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And got his funeral paid for by Henry.
Ah, wow. Yeah, I guess technically Thomas Seymour got his funeral paid for too.
Oof.
This is where somebody's gonna tell me I'm laughing inappropriately. It's funny, okay? It was funny. He was executed. Obviously, he didn't have to pay for it.
Although technically they did, because they would give a token payment to the executioner
Oh, that's a good
and bless,
point.
like, and bless them.
It was probably fake money anyway that he gave him. Oh my gosh. So I think the elephant in the room when it comes to men behaving badly is Henry VIII, would you say?
Hmm.
I don't, if you, I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you could pick, and you're not allowed to pick Thomas More. If you could pick one instance, if you guys could see her face right now, she is so mad at me that I said she couldn't pick Thomas More. If you could
I
pick,
don't actually know what I'm picking,
I
but
know, you're like, how dare you? If you could pick one thing that Henry VIII did during his reign that is the most despicable thing. See, now you know why I told you couldn't pick Thomas More. What would it be? Would it have anything to do with his six wives? Would it have to do with the church, his children? Any number of things, I guess it could be.
I would say, oh, I'm torn between two things.
Oh, you can just say them both.
Okay. His treatment of Catherine of Aragon.
Oh, yes. That's a good one. He was terrible to her.
I don't just mean going for the annulment. I mean, like, pretty much exiling her, reducing her household, all of that. It
Yeah,
was just unnecessary.
that's good. That's a good
Um,
one.
and then the second one would be Margaret Pole.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, and we didn't even go into Six Wives. I feel like the Six Wives, the story has been told so many times that it's like, what's the comparison? You're like desensitized to it
Yeah.
after a while. Like it's just not
Yeah.
that, yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's between those two. I think, like, Catherine was just disgusting.
yeah.
Didn't
It is.
need to go that far. And then Margaret, come on, she's an old lady. What is she actually going to do to you?
Yeah, right.
If you really want to, put her in a nunnery somewhere. You didn't have to do what you did to an old lady.
Yeah, yeah. That was, it's kind of similar to Anne Boleyn in that respect. Although
Mm.
Anne Boleyn probably would have fought back in the nunnery. Or it would have been a religious crisis and people would have supported her, even though she was now a nun. And yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's so much about Henry's behavior towards his children, his daughters in particular, that just doesn't sit well with me. It's like, oh, I love you now, and now I don't love you. Oh, guess what? I love you again, and now I don't love you. Like, that is terrible parenting.
Well, I think the whole thing with Catherine, the the result is what happened with Mary. Like, she was renamed Lady Mary, and that's all a result of what he did to Catherine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I
That
think that.
might, I, that might have been his worst decision in his lifetime because I just what would his life what would have England looked like? Did we do an episode on that? What if Henry VIII had stayed married to Catherine of Aragon?
We didn't.
No, I think we talked about heirs a little bit
We
about
did. We did talk about us, but we
yeah.
haven't done a what if he stayed married.
Yeah, we'll
Ooh.
have to lock that one away a little bit and think about that one. So we know Henry VIII behaved badly. He was like the poster child for men behaving badly in Tudor England. So it's no wonder why these other men behaved the way that they did, because they're just following what their king was doing. Yeah. So I do have one story, and I wrote about this on my website many, many years ago. I think you pointed out 9 years ago. I wrote an article called Men Behaving Badly, and it was about Arthur Plantagenet, Lord Lisle, and Francis Brandon, the Vicar of Hell, I think it was Wolsey called him that.
Bryan.
Yeah, it's Francis Bryan. He had a reputation, right? And he was the guy who had one eye. He lost an eye in a jousting accident. He had a patch, and Thomas Seymour spent a lot of time with him. They were distantly related. I think Thomas learned some things from Francis Bryan. But there was a story that came out about something happening that caused Francis Bryan to repent to the Pope and get absolution. And I found this in the Lisle letters many, many years ago, and I was very much intrigued by this. And this all happened in, I think, 1533. And this was about the time, I think, when Arthur Plantagenet became Deputy of Calais. Mm-hmm. And they are in France at the time. And, well, I guess technically it's Francis Bryan, but he's writing to Lord Lisle. And I'm going to read you some of this because I think if you hear the letter, it's going to make you start thinking and wondering.
Okay.
Because, of course, it's a letter, so it's not all spelled out clearly what he's talking about.
I would expect nothing less from a Tudor letter.
So he says, my good Lord, so he's writing to Arthur Plantagenet, I have received your letter, by the which I do not only perceive that ye would be glad of my return, but also my lady, your bedfellow, whom I do heartily thank. And then he says, sir, your last letter, I perceive that in Calais ye have sufficient courtesans, which would be like prostitutes, right? To furnish and accomplish my desires. Okay. So he's saying to Lord Lisle, I understand in Calais you have plenty of prostitutes that will do what I need them to do for me. I do thank you for your good provision. But, he says, but this shall be to advertise to you that since my coming hither, I have called to my remembrance the misliving that ye and such other hath brought me to, for the which being repented, have had absolution of the Pope. And because ye be my friend, I would advertise you and likewise to be sorry of that ye have done, and ask my lady, your wife, forgiveness, and that forgiveness obtained, to come in all diligence hither to be absolved of the Pope, who I think will not tarry here much longer than Hallowmas. Anyway, he's going into this like, thank you for your arrangement of prostitutes for me. However, I've suddenly had a guilty conscience. Something happened, and I just want you to know you should probably repent too for all the things that you've done. Which brings me back to the comment at the beginning of the show, which I think Laura said something about Arthur Plantagenet being better. He wasn't. This letter right here tells you he was just like every other man. But when I read that letter, I kept thinking, what on earth could he have done to have to repent to the Pope and get like absolution? Like, to me, in order to repent, you'd have to break like one of the 10 Commandments. And I don't understand where prostitutes fit into the 10 Commandments at all.
K-pop Demon Hunters, Haja Boys Breakfast Meal and Huntrix Meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja Boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
I suppose it'd fall under the 7 deadly sins, lust.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So,
and I suppose for us, giving your confession to the Pope now would be not something your average person is going to do. But Francis Bryan was an ambassador.
Yes.
So he had plenty of opportunity to be in the presence of the Pope. So for him, it's probably not as big a deal as we probably think it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I just find it so interesting that he's like telling Arthur, you should probably ask for forgiveness too and ask your wife for forgiveness because the Pope isn't going to be here much longer, basically, is what he's saying, right? Who I think will not tarry here much longer than Hallowmass.
Does that mean that he's leaving
France,
wherever they are?
Yeah, I don't know. I find it so in this letter, like you said, it's all these Tudor letters, like they're speaking in riddles and you don't really know exactly what they're saying. You're like, can you just come out and tell us what you did? Because it seems pretty scandalous. Whatever you
Yeah, they never write very straightforward, do they?
No.
It's always like 4 sentences that we would probably write 2 words for.
Yeah. I just really love that how he was thanking Arthur for the sufficient courtesans and how he's going to furnish them to accomplish his desires. Jeez, Louise.
I'm sure Honor Lyle would have loved that letter if she'd read it, reading about her husband needing to repent.
Yeah. She was like, finally, somebody's telling him what to do. I feel like, this is like a good transition now that we talk about Lady Lyle, because one of the other things, and this isn't necessarily behaving badly, but I've written about this before. I think I've talked about it on social media before, is a letter that Catherine Howard's dad, Lord Edmund Howard, writes to Lady Lyle. And I don't know what's going on with Edmund Howard physically, like medically exactly, but Lady Lyle must have suggested something to help him with his problem. And so he writes her a letter and he says, Madam, so it is I have this night after midnight taken your medicine, for the which I heartily thank you, for it hath done me much good and hath caused the stone to break, so that now I void much gravel. Okay, so this sounds like maybe he had kidney stones, right? But for all that, your said medicine hath done me little honesty, for it made me piss my bed this night, for the which my wife hath sore beaten me, and saying it's children's part to be pissed their bed. You have made me such a pisser that I dare not this day go abroad, wherefore I beseech you to make mine excuse to my lord and master treasurer. So he's like, Lady Lyle, thank you so much for giving me the medicine to help me with my kidney stones, except now I can't stop wetting the bed, and my wife is not happy with me. She's calling me names and beating me, and I dare not travel anywhere because I may piss the bed there too. It's such an honest letter. Like the first time I saw this, I started laughing and I was like, I have never read anything like this before. Who puts in a letter that made me piss my bed? It's not him behaving badly, but it's just funny.
It is funny.
And I'm sorry if somebody is offended by me telling that story. I'm sorry. It's comical because
I think it's funny that he's so honest with it. Like, thank you for the medicine. It did work. However, side effect.
It worked too well.
Yeah.
And now I cannot control my bladder.
Yeah. And my wife is beating me up.
Like, could you, like, there's this, in my head, I'm thinking about Edmund Howard's wife, who was it Joyce Culpeper, thinking about her and like the frustration, because it's not like beds nowadays either. Like if you wet the bed, that seems like a probably big process to remedy. Yeah. And if you do it more than once, could you imagine the frustration?
I've just got a vision of a woman like hitting a man with a slipper. Like
Again, I'm going to make you sleep in the stables.
It was Lady Lyle's fault. She sent me the medicine.
Yeah, exactly. So those were a couple stories that I definitely wanted to share. And I feel like, maybe that's where we should end today. I feel like, how can you not end on pissing the bed?
Yeah.
We started out with the womanizing of Charles Brandon. We went into all the poor decisions of Thomas Seymour. And we talked about a little bit about John Dudley. We talked about Henry VIII. And then we ended with prostitutes, repentance, and wetting the bed. What a great episode. And we've been talking about how, finding men behaving badly really wasn't too difficult to do in Tudor England. And then maybe we should do an episode on women behaving badly. So I think this should be a call out to all of our listeners to give us some ideas of women that they think may have behaved badly. And it may be ones that we've talked about already, but I think I'm okay with that. The more I think about this, like, not everybody listens to every single episode. And so if you do, thank you. But just know not everybody does. Some people kind of pick and choose the topics that they want. And so we might have to repeat some stories because of that.
Suggestions.
Yes, please keep sending us suggestions. Other than that, I got to give you the opportunity to promote your book again, since it is out.
It is. Erasmus is finally out. And I've seen pictures in the last couple of days of copies arriving at people's homes, which is really exciting.
Yes, I can't even imagine what that feels like, honestly. Someday when my book comes out, I'll know that feeling. But you have felt it. I love your confidence.
You will know that feeling.
Ask me right now when the last time was that I looked at my draft.
Oh, God.
It's probably been about 2 weeks now because I've been distracted by other things. And so then it's hard to get back into it again. But
you'll pick it up when you're ready.
I know it's already April, and I keep thinking like I really wanted to get this book done this year. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, Amy McElroy, thank you so much for joining me again this week. I can't wait for next week.
My pleasure. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to Off the Record on Tudor's Dynasty and Beyond. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you're following the podcast. And if you'd like to support the work that goes into researching and creating these episodes, you can find extra content and ways to join the community through Patreon and Substack. And don't forget, you can now comment directly on episodes over on Spotify. I love reading every single one. Until next time, stay curious, and I'll see you back here for more royal drama and real history.
The right window treatments change everything. Your sleep, your privacy, the way every room looks and feels. At Blinds.com, we've spent 30 years making it surprisingly simple to get exactly what your home needs. We've covered over 25 million windows and have 50,000 five-star reviews to prove we deliver. Whether you DIY it or want a pro to handle everything from measure to install, we have you covered. Real design professionals, free samples, zero pressure. Right now, get up to 40% off site-wide, plus get a free professional measure at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions apply.
Stitch Fix. Shopping is hard. Let's talk about it.
I don't have time to shop for clothes.
I have to buy everything in 3 sizes to find one that fits. They know me at the post office.
Workout wear is my only wear.
Stitch Fix makes shopping easy. Just show your size, style, and budget, and your stylist sends personalized looks right to your door. No subscription required, plus free shipping and returns.
Oh, wow. That was easy.
Stitch Fix. Online personal styling for everyone. Take your style quiz today at stitchfix.com.